joining local police and National Guard troops ahead of their patrol in the city. It's all part of his so-called crime crackdown. He's there with Stephen Miller, his deputy chief of staff, and Pam Bondi, the attorney general. Let's go to Monica Alba, who's also tracking this movement by the president. Monica, give us the latest update.
Yeah, Ryan. So as you can see there are about 100 or more law enforcement personnel. I'll send it back to you to listen in here to the president.
Okay, let's see.
The Capitol, it's going to be the best in the world. We're going to do what you're doing with law enforcement. And very importantly, also, we're going to physically do it. We're going back to Congress for some money, and we're going to redo a lot of the pavement, a lot of the medians, a lot of the graffiti's all coming off real fast. It's going to come down real fast. We're working with Clark Construction. They're one of the big ones. They're the biggest here by far, actually. And we're going to be not so much building, it's cleaning and fixing and redoing and putting brand new surfaces down on your roads and streets. And when people come in from the airport all the way to the Capitol or the White House or any place else they're going to say, boy, this place is spotless. So we're doing that. Most importantly, though, we're going to have a crowd of people that are going to be happy. You know, I've received more phone calls from people in the last 4 days than I ever have. I've been here now 4 years plus. And by the way, I think we had about the best 7 months, they're saying, that any president's had. We've done a lot of work. We've done a lot of good work, including the biggest tax cuts that you've ever had. I know you guys don't care about taxes, so you don't care about saving a little tax, but you saved a lot of tax, actually. But we've had a great period of time. But I've never received so many phone calls thanking me for what we've done in Washington, D.C., from people that haven't gone to a restaurant literally in 4 years. And they said, you know, what you've done it's unprecedented, because what they said, it was just unsafe. We couldn't do it. We'd go out and you'd see the stories, you'd read the stories, you'd see all of the things that are happening. And they said, we couldn't stand it, sir. And now I take my wife and my kids to dinner. One of them said he's gone out 4 nights in a row, and he hadn't gone out for 4 years. So it's a great tribute to you. And when I look at you people, I understand why, because there's no games, right? We're not playing games. We're going to make it safe. And we're going to then go on to other places. But we're going to stay here for a while. We want to make this absolutely perfect. It's our capital. And I guess it used to be many years ago safe, but it's certainly not had a very good run. And you got to be strong, you got to be tough, you got to do your job. Whatever it takes to do your job, you got to do your job. But the crime numbers are way down. I'm looking at, you saw some of the stats, they just read them out to me inside, the numbers that we haven't seen here ever, actually ever. And I think it's probably, right now, to me, I feel very safe now, and I'm hearing people are very safe, but I know within 2 weeks, it's going to be, Pam, it's going to be at a level that's even far superior. So I just wanted to thank you all. You're doing incredible. You're incredible people. You make the country run, frankly. You make the whole place run. We're going to have the best Capitol ever. We're going to have it's going to look better than it ever did. Even at the White House, I'm building a ballroom. They've been after a ballroom for 150 years, but they never had a real estate guy as a president. You know, I've done a lot of ballrooms. And we're going to make this one the best of them all. But we're doing a real job. As far as the country is concerned, we're respected again. We had a country that was laughed at a year ago. They thought they couldn't understand what was happening. And it's about leadership. But we had a country that was a dead country in many ways. I went to Saudi Arabia. I went to Qatar. I went to UAE. We came back with $5.1 trillion of investment in this country. And we're over 17 trillion. Now, a lot of you don't know what that means. And nobody knows what it means because it's never happened before. In 5 months, because really it's a 5-month, even though we're here 7, but we started 5 months ago in terms of investment. And we have, because they see what's happened to our country, we're going to be over 17 trillion with a T, dollars of investment. There's never been anything close. If we did 1 trillion in a year, and we're talking about over a 5-month period, maybe 6 months if you look at it, but over $17 trillion. We're building plants, auto plants, AI plants, all sorts of plants all over the country. I'm giving them the right. Lee Zeldin's done a fantastic job. We give them the right to build electric plants. They become almost like a public utility because we have old grids. We have a lot of stuff that's old. We wouldn't be able to compete with China AI. And now we're totally leading the AI race and the artificial intelligence. It's a big deal. And it's the hottest thing there is for probably in 35, 40 years. It's a lot of people don't know what it is. Just trust me, it's very hot. It's big. But they need massive amounts of electricity. They need more electricity than we have right now in the whole country servicing everything. In other words, we have to at least double it up to be competitive and to be leading. And we're more than doubling it up. And what I'm doing is I'm letting all of these very rich companies, and they've got nothing but they got a lot of money, and they want to invest it in the United States. And they're building big plants, but they're building electric plants with it. I said, you build your building, and these are buildings that cost $30, $40, $50 billion when you include everything that's inside, all the technology. I said, I'm going to let you build electric plants to fire your own electricity, and anything that you have left over, you sell it back into the grid. So all of these big factories that are being built are building their own electric plants fired by oil and gas. They're not fired by wind, by the way, because wind doesn't work, but we won't say that. It destroys everything. It looks terrible. It's a very expensive form of energy. And we're not doing wind. We're going back to fossil fuel. I hope not too many of you people are going to be upset, but we have to go back to what works. We can't be
Okay, we'll continue to monitor President Trump's remarks here as he is talking to some of the law enforcement officers and National Guard troops that have brought in as part of his crackdown on crime in Washington, D.C. But his remarks have now gotten a little off track as he's talking about a number of other issues. But I want to bring Monica Alba in because I think, Monica, one of the things that stood out most to me in what he said, particularly as it relates to this crime crackdown, is that after this operation is done in Washington, D.C., he plans to move on to other cities. And this is something that he repeatedly teases, but there isn't really the infrastructure or the ability for him to do this across the country the same way as he's doing it here in Washington.
That's right, Ryan. That is the main question here, because the reason he can do this in Washington is because it is a district, right? It isn't a state, and the 1973 Home Rule Act gives D.C. its political autonomy in terms of electing a mayor or having a city council, but it doesn't mean that the president can't federalize the police department, which is exactly what he has decided to do here, though, as you know well, Ryan, covering Congress, after 30 days, he would have to get congressional approval, or he says he could declare a national crime emergency and then perhaps justify it that way. But that's certainly something they're going to have to be talking about and deciding in a couple of weeks. But to your point about a blueprint about other cities, that does beg the question. There are so many federal agents that are involved now in this effort. We know there are hundreds of them that have been detailed from DHS, from FBI, from other agencies to be a part of the D.C. effort. So would they be perhaps sent to other cities in the same way? That is something the president has mused about, but we haven't gotten many details about just exactly how that would work. But he has mentioned other places where perhaps this would take place. And you saw there that near him was the Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, who oversees the U.S. Park Police. That's the location that he went to address these law enforcement personnel and these troops that are there. And that is in Anacostia, which is in Ward 8 here in Washington, D.C., which is one of the areas that does experience more crime, according to police data and statistics, Ryan. But this is, of course, a heavily secured area where the president is speaking. But there had been some questions about whether agents had been distributed all over the district, not just to the high traffic tourist areas like the National Mall, which we have seen, but also to some of these other areas where there has been higher crime. But just finally, on that point of the statistics, President Trump has questioned these stats that actually show D.C. is at a 30-year low for violent crime. And in fact, he has directed his Department of Justice, which announced an investigation into the potential, they argue, manipulation of those statistics. Unclear if that's the case, but they are certainly trying to make that argument here too. Ryan.
Okay, Monica Alba will continue to monitor this event with President Trump. We'll see if he actually goes out on the road with any of these law enforcement officers or if he's just going to address them and then move on. But we appreciate that report.